They built with dirt. And, some of their walls are actually older than entire nations. While modern buildings, well, they crack within decades. Medieval mud structures are still standing, still breathing, still regulating heat like living things. That's not nostalgia. That's engineering. And somewhere along the way, we forgot what they knew. Welcome back to Ancient Roots Uncovered, where we don't just tell history, we extract it. Today, we're digging into one of the most underestimated materials of all time. Mud, earth, the stuff we wipe off our shoes. Medieval builders turned it into a high-performance construction system. And the proof is still all around us. Mud was not primitive, it was precision. Medieval mud building wasn't random dirt slapped onto walls. It was calculated. Builders blended specific ratios of clay, sand, silt, straw, hair, lime, ash, even animal dung. Not for superstition, for chemistry. Clay gave plasticity and binding power. Sand prevented cracking. Straw worked like rebar, stopping shrinkage and spreading stress. Lime hardened the surface and repelled water. Ash altered pH and discouraged insects. Every ingredient had a job. This wasn't just trial and error. This was inherited material science. They understood particle size, moisture balance, thermal mass, vapor movement, and structural load long before those terms even existed. Mud was not weak. It was, well, tuned. And when tuned correctly, it became one of the most versatile building materials ever used. One of the great secrets medieval builders knew was that walls shouldn't just separate inside from outside. They should work. Thick earthen walls absorbed heat during the day and slowly released it at night. In hot regions, interiors stayed cool even under brutal sun. In cold regions, warmth lingered long after the fire faded. This wasn't insulation in the modern sense. It was thermal mass. Mud didn't trap heat. It regulated it. Even more impressive, these walls breathed. Moisture moved in and out naturally. There was no trapped condensation, no mold traps, and, well, no sealed box syndrome. When indoor air was damp, the walls absorbed it. When it dried, they released it. Medieval homes quietly stabilized temperature and humidity without electricity, without machines, without ducts. The building itself did the work. That's not old-fashioned. That's advanced. Mud alone doesn't build cathedrals or fortifications. But medieval builders didn't rely on mud alone. They engineered systems. They combined earthen walls with timber frames that distributed load and absorbed movement. They used stone foundations to lift mud away from groundwater. They shaped walls thicker at the base, thinner at the top. They curved surfaces to deflect rain and wind. Some earthen walls were over a metre thick. That thickness gave them fire resistance, impact resistance, and, incredible longevity. In many medieval cities, earthen core walls faced with lime plaster still survive after 600, 800, even 1,000 years. Meanwhile, modern concrete often begins serious decay within 50 to 100. The difference isn't age, it's philosophy. Medieval builders designed for adaptation. Modern builders designed for speed. Here's something modern construction almost never does: self-repair. When medieval earthen walls cracked, moisture reactivated the clay. The material swelled. Microcracks closed. Plaster could be reapplied. Surfaces renewed. Damage wasn't catastrophic. It was gradual, visible, manageable. Mud structures aged like skin, not like brittle shells. They could be patched indefinitely. No demolition cycle, no total replacement. That's why medieval settlements evolved layer by layer instead of being wiped and rebuilt. Buildings were living frameworks, not disposable products. We didn't just forget a material, we forgot a maintenance culture. Mud doesn't burn. That alone made it priceless in medieval cities where, firestorms could erase neighbourhoods overnight. Earthen walls stopped flames, slowed heat, and saved structures when timber alone would have vanished. Mud also absorbed sound. Thick earth walls created interiors that were quiet, grounded, acoustically stable. No echo chambers, no vibration transfer. Privacy before drywall. And when conflict came, earthen ramparts and reinforced mud brick absorbed impact far better than rigid stone alone. They flexed. They dissipated energy. They were early shock-absorbing architecture. Mud wasn't the poor option. It was the smart one. Industrialization rewarded speed, uniformity, and transportability. Concrete could be poured anywhere. Steel could be standardized. Earth had to be understood locally. Mud required knowledge of soil composition, climate behavior, seasonal timing, and long curing processes. It demanded patience and skill. Factories replaced craft, codes replaced experience, and we traded long-term performance for short-term convenience. So, modern buildings, became sealed systems, entirely dependent on machines. Heating, cooling, ventilation, dehumidification, each one handled by a separate device. But you see, medieval mud buildings did all of that passively. When we forgot mud, we didn't just change materials. We changed our relationship with buildings. From partners to problems we constantly have to fix. Today, architects and engineers are quietly returning to medieval principles. Rammed earth, cob, earthen plasters, clay-lime composites, not as nostalgia, as solutions. Because, mud is local, low energy, carbon storing, fire-resistant, repairable, and honestly thermally brilliant. The same physics medieval builders used are now being measured in labs and rediscovered in sustainable design. And every test confirms it. They knew exactly what they were doing. Medieval builders didn't dominate nature. They negotiated with it. They studied soil instead of replacing it. They shaped climate instead of fighting it. They built structures meant to age, adapt, and be renewed. Mud forced humility, and in return it gave durability. The buildings that survived weren't the ones that resisted time the hardest. They were the ones that moved with it. And, that may be the most modern idea of all. If this opened your eyes, make sure you subscribe to Ancient Roots Uncovered. Share this with someone who thinks history is just stories, because the past isn't behind us, it's underneath us, and it's still holding us up.